Good afternoon to our honourable members, our guests in the gallery as well as on the side of me. Let me see what is going on, why that's reflecting. Okay, we will now continue with our votes. Just give me please a second just to undo all my documents. Right, we're beginning with vote 13. Honourable members, I now recognise Honourable Minister Murray.
Deputy Speaker, today I present the Western Cape Department of Culture Affairs and Sports Appropriation Budget for the 2022-23 financial year, acknowledging that the 2022 MTEF budget is premised on prioritising the recovery of our sectors by aligning it to the Western Cape Recovery Plan in areas of jobs, safety and well-being. At the Department of Culture Affairs and Sport, we take our mandate of creating a socially inclusive, active, connected Western Cape serious and have made great strides in our commitment to keep hope alive during difficult times. In the coming financial year, we will build on our successes, learn from our experiences and together with our partners focus on our priorities, which include creating a shared future and sense of belonging through collaborative efforts to force social inclusivity and cohesion, offering youth a sense of purpose and pathways to become productive citizens and creating opportunities to address well-being by foregrounding youth and mental well-being, and ensuring new operating models within the context of the new way of work and culture of Western Cape government as we proactively respond to the needs and demands of those we serve through culture affairs and sport. Deputy Speaker, the Department of Culture Affairs and Sport budget for the 22-23 financial year increased by approximately 37.8 million from an adjusted budget of just over 900.1 million in the 21-22 financial year to 937.9 in 22-23. As the department did not receive additional funding for the impact of the 2021 wage agreement, the department absorbed the impact of the wage agreement at a total cost of 4.279 million. With youth development at the heart of the department's plans, we received an additional 15 million to mitigate the risk of youth disillusionment in the Western Cape, mainly brought about by COVID-19 and its consequential impacts. With the additional funding, the Department of Culture Affairs and Sport, through its Year Beyond program, plans to address youth unemployment by providing more than 3,000 young people with first work opportunities while they build their work readiness skills so to transition into studies or work. Linked to this allocation is an additional 2 million to conduct a review of current youth programs relevant to skills and employment programs in the Western Cape government, and this will inform our priorities within the youth strategy going forward. Deputy Speaker, the department also received an additional 15 million for the implementation of holiday programs in vulnerable communities to keep children engaged in productive activities during school closures. The aim of the holiday program is to provide fun, engaging activities for children over the festive holiday break as a way of addressing the various risks facing children and youth, focusing on psychological, physical and educational aspects, while at the same time creating first work experiences for youth aged between 18 and 25. Dit is vir my aangenaam om aan te kondig dat 'n bykomende toewysing van 1.5 miljoen ontvang is om 'n uitvoerbaarheidsstudie vir die toekomstige bestuur van die Kango-grotte te onderneem, ten einde inkomste te genereer om toekomstige volhoubaarheid te verseker. Hierdie toewysing sal ook die geleentheid bied om 'n kosteberekeningsstudie uit te voer om die hoeveelheid befondsing te bepaal wat benodig word vir die kort, medium en langtermyn instandhouding van die Kango-grotte en omliggende infrastruktuur. 'n Bykomende 1.5 miljoen is vir die kultuurfasiliteite en ons sorg ontvang om 'n haalbaarheidsstudie vir 'n potensiële openbare private vennootskap by Melkbos op die See kultuurfasiliteit en Schoemanspoort fasiliteit wat in Oudtshoorn is te doen. In die proses word die moontlikheid van 'n dubbelgebruiksmodel ondersoek wat beide die openbare en private gebruik van hierdie fasiliteite gaan inkorporeer. Die model sluit tans slegs openbare gebruik in en die potensiaal daarvan om groter hoogtes te bereik word beperk. Deputy Speaker, bykans 16,5 miljoen is vir die Wes-Kaapse Provinsiale Argief toegewys om sy aanlyn en digitale diensteprojekte implementeer om toegang en 'n kultuur van bewaring te bevorder en hierdie mylpaalprestasie te bereik. Die befondsing sluit die verkryging van masjinerie en toerusting in om provinsiale argiewe te digitaliseer om aanlyn toere moontlik te maak, wat voorsiening maak vir 'n wye spektrum van toegangspunte, nie net in die Wes-Kaap of Suid-Afrika nie, maar ook na die wêreldgemeenskap. Ek kan met sekerheid sê dat ons internasionale terrein gaan betree. Ons gaan die totale toewysing van ongeveer 376,5 miljoen vir die 2022-23 boekjaar gebruik om voort te gaan om ons status as die voorste biblioteekdiens in Suid-Afrika te verbeter. Ons het beslis die mees deernisvolle staatsamptenare wat die volhoubaarheid en uitstekende bestuur van die Wes-Kaap biblioteekdienste implementeer. Die agbare Pieter Marie sal bly wees om te hoor dat daar tydens die proses waarin ons streef na taaldemokrasie bykans 5,8 miljoen aan taaldienste toegeken is om al drie die provinsiale amptelike tale, Suid-Afrikaanse gebaretaal en die Nama, Khoi en San tale in die Wes-Kaap te bevorder om almal wat die Wes-Kaap as hul tuiste beskou welkom te laat voel. An amount of 5 million has also been allocated for major events to unlock economic and social opportunities on a local and regional level. This appropriation will be informed by the Western Cape Events Forum following the Cape of Great Events Conference held earlier this month to explore events as an economic catalyst for the Western Cape. One of the major social benefits of events is the ability to bring people of various cultures together, thereby building social capital, which is important for social cohesion. This social capital is built over time after many years of consistent investment and being in tune with the needs of host communities. So the events we support need to see themselves more than just events, but rather part of a journey to build trust, cooperation, and innovation. To share some insight, delegates explored strategies around creating a more streamlined event ecosystem and going beyond raising the profile of destination Western Cape. During the conference, it was noted that from 2011, the integrated event strategy has paved the way in providing a guide to decision-making for supporting events in the Western Cape. However, key outcomes of the conference included and is not limited to the need for the strategy to be refreshed and that the roles of the public sector and that of the private sector need to be clear and focused to strike an optimal balance. Together with academia and representatives of the private sector within the events and business events landscape, the conference indeed provided a platform to review and engage on strategies to maximize opportunities for recovery and growth in recognition of events as catalyst for economic growth and social cohesion. Highlighting the whole of society and whole of government approach needed to increase opportunities for all those we serve, the Western Cape Event Forum is an interdepartmental committee comprising of the Department of the Premier, the Western Cape Department of Culture, Affairs and Sport, Western Cape Department of Economic Development and Tourism, as well as Westgrow, the Tourism, Trade, Investment, and Film and Media Promotion Agency for the Western Cape. The provincial entities serve as the custodians of the integrated event strategy for the Western Cape and provides a shared vision and shared ownership in delivering events in the province. The Cape of Great Events strategy aims to provide a single point of entry for event organizers to engage the Western Cape government, build partnerships with the broader event ecosystem, and increase the impact of events in the province while seeking innovative ways of promoting events tourism. Partnerships within the broader events ecosystem to increase the impact of events within the Western Cape must be explored. A refreshed look at the integrated event strategy will be necessary to consider better alignment of the role of the public sector, as well as internal alignment between the various entities involved within the event space in the Western Cape. The benefits of sport and event tourism for the Western Cape's visitor economy is evident in the amount of support provided by all the entities involved. The Department of Culture and Affairs provides annual funding allocations to over 146 sports federations across all 6 districts of the Western Cape. In 2020-21, the activities of these federations contributed to an economic impact of over 8.8 billion per annum, which translates to 2.2% of the Western Cape gross domestic product since 2012. In addition, it was established that the sports sector supports 60,000 jobs in the province. The department also annually funds art and culture organizations and practitioners, as well as professional non-governmental organizations such as the Cape Philharmonic Orchestra and flagship events like the Suid-Oosterfees, to name only a few. Deputy Speaker, this was pre-COVID-19 and goes a long way to show in real terms that the Department of Culture and Affairs and Sport alignment to recovery plan will contribute to increasing its economic impact. Another successful conference hosted by the department earlier this month, tonight speaker, was the 22 Women in Sport conference, a culmination of over 2 years of conceptualizing, including initial discussions with each district and different federations at the trilateral engagements, a series of webinars, changing our ways of thinking and doing. The conference indeed made great strides to progress the agenda of women in sport in the Western Cape. The conference, the valuable inputs from all those who attended, the discussions, actions and the resolutions taken to develop the first of its kind provincial policy to safeguard women in sport in South Africa is the personification of this progress, and for this we are eternally grateful. One pivotal outcome of this conference was the unanimous acknowledgement that for far too long we have been engaging on equality as if women are on the same footing as men, when in fact systematic and institutional patriarchy is still perpetuated in our society today. As the Department of Culture Affairs and Sport, we are bound as public servants to act for not only equality in sport, but equity. Following the Gen X presentation on menstrual cups to introduce the uncomfortable conversations and the redressing that needs to take place, I concur that a period should end a sentence, not a woman or girl child's potential. I am then also proud to announce that through our club development programs, equipment budget, funds will be allocated to menstrual cups and other necessities our women and girl children require to form at the optimal best. I then also challenge all Cabinet colleagues to advocate for culture affairs and sport, particularly for women, farm worker inclusivity, and those living with disabilities on every agenda, on every budget decision, at each engagement with municipalities to appropriate the necessary funds, resources and facilities needed. Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, evidently in a dismal national fiscal environment, adopting a whole of society and whole of government approach inculcating collaborative efforts through sustainable partnerships is much needed to achieve our mutual goals to enable safer and cohesive communities through culture affairs and sport. As a trusted partner of our sport and culture stakeholders, those affecting dynamic change in behavioral trends at grassroots level are our most valued partners, and we remain committed to empowering them and the various structures through innovative assistance and interventions as the need and demand transpires. As I said previously, under the visionary leadership of Premier Alan Winde, the Western Cape government firmly believes that innovation is always on the agenda, and I look forward to collaboratively embracing new ideas and always doing the right thing with competent integrity, always mindful of the people we serve through culture affairs and sport. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise Honourable Kama.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, the Honourable MEC and Honourable members. I think through you, Deputy Speaker, let me First, once more, congratulate Member Barnes and welcome her newly born beautiful daughter, Azania, as we wish her well before she comes back to do what she does best, which is to hold the executive accountable. I think the first other point that we want to make, Deputy Speaker, is that it is our observation that there is a very abusive relationship between the executive authority and the officials of the department, because the expectations that we have in terms of what this department should deliver in the province are not backed by the sufficient funds, for that to be realized. The department's total allocation for the 2022-2023 financial year increased by 77.632 million from an indicative baseline allocation of 860.281 million to the final allocation of 937.913 million. While we welcome the increase, we remain heedful and mindful of the need for additional budget. There is consensus amongst members of the Standing Committee that the budget for the department is not enough. The department's demands and changes in services as outlined in the estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure, as well as the performance targets as outlined in the annual performance plan, prove that the budget allocated to this department is not enough. The Western Cape remains the last bastion of racism and white privilege. In terms of the vision-inspired priorities of the provincial government, this department is entrusted with the implementation of Priority 6, social cohesion and safe communities. It is this department that should come up with programs and policies to deal decisively with the demon of racism within the DA first, the provincial government and the province at large. Our people on the ground are growing tired of this provincial government's backward policies and are yearning for change. It does not make sense for the department to continue providing a grant in aid to museums in response to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic when no similar provision is made for struggling artists and athletes. It will take years before these athletes and artists fully recover from the impact of this pandemic, and some will never recover. It is for this reason that we are calling for continued support to the athletes and artists. Deputy Speaker, Priority 6, social cohesion and safe communities, if implemented correctly, can go a long way in terms of promoting social cohesion, and there must be more funding for this. President Nelson Mandela continues to remind us about the power of sport, that, and I quote, it has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks truth to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair. It is more powerful than governments in breaking down racial barriers. It laughs in the face of all types of discrimination, end quote. We need more funding to make this possible. The MEC must go to the provincial treasury and make the case for additional funding for this purpose. The ANC will also call on the national government to review the current sports-focused schools funding model, as it benefits more the privileged who attend former model Swiss schools than that are inaccessible to the poor majority. Deputy Speaker, sports play a vital role not only in uniting societies across racial lines, but it also has a power to end wars and address crime. Just in 2017, Didier Drogba ended a 5-year or halted a 5-year civil war in his country, Cote d'Ivoire, by scoring the last goal that helped them win a match against Madagascar. If enough resources could be pumped into sports in the province, then we could end the raging gang wars in the Cape Flats. We can silence the guns in Manenberg, Elsis River, Nyanga, Kailicha, and Delft. The White Paper for Sports and Recreation of 2012 highlights the importance of sports in efforts to reduce crime. This can be made possible if we can get enough investments for sports. The 292 million for Program 4, Sports and Recreation, is ridiculous and makes mockery of sport development and recreation. The total budget for sport in the entire province is a mere 69 million rand. The budget for school sport is just over 45 million rand. The allocation for recreation is under 20 million rand. This is simply not enough. It is because of this kind of budgeting that we continue to fail our youth and promising athletes. In the standing committee, Deputy Speaker, I reminded members of the impact of this on young people across the province. I related a story of a young man from the Cape Flats who had a promising sports career. He couldn't get enough funding to go to the national school championships. Out of anger and resentment, he gave up on schooling and sport. He later joined a local gang and was murdered by the rival gang. This is not an isolated case. There are many thousands of young people from poor backgrounds who suffer the same fate. This was well captured in the Weekend August article earlier this month under the title Cape Flats Teens Miss Out on Sports Due to Poverty. The article exposed how talented Cape Flats youngsters miss out of participating in sports because they are poor. It narrated a story of how a Hanover Park teen almost missed out of an opportunity to compete in the Western Cape, in the Western Province athletics competition due to not having funds. Mr. Peter Hendricks, a teacher and sports coordinator at Mount View High in Hanover Park, said the 15-year-old boy was one of the thousands of youngsters from the Cape Flats, talented but poor, thus missing out on opportunities. Deputy Speaker, we must laud local heroes like Mr. Hendricks, who continue to mold our youth from poor communities who are pushed into gangs because of lack of opportunities. To Mr. Hendricks, we say thank you wherever you are. You must know that we are proud of the great work you do. Deputy Speaker, in the Standing Committee for Social Development, a question was posed regarding the youth development policy in the Western Cape. And the response offered was that this department is responsible for its implementation. In this budget, there's an allocation of 66 million for youth programs. The department has said the focus will be on programs that provide opportunities for dual beneficiaries and pathways into the world of work or studies for youth in the Western Cape. This is a new allocation and we must welcome and appreciate it as a step in the right direction. However, it must be stated categorically that this is not a youth development policy, certainly not enough to address youth challenges in the province. The Western Cape needs a youth development policy which will outline clear objectives for youth development to respond to the growing youth challenges of unemployment, drugs, substance abuse, gangsterism, and the rising NEET rate. We are fortunate in the Western Cape, even in this House, Deputy Speaker, to have the former National Youth Commission chairperson as a member. I think the department and the office of the MEC can tap into the experience of member Nkondlo's advice on drafting and implementing a youth development policy and not only rely on these stopgap measures like the Year Beyond program. This department plans to address youth unemployment by providing 3,000 plus young people with first work opportunities. An additional 15 million has been allocated for this purpose. While we welcome it in principle, we ask the Premier, the MEC Menir, and the MEC Marey to, if they think this is enough to address the challenges of youth unemployment in the province. What about skills developments for other young people and those who are in the NEET rate? We want this to also benefit young people in the rural regions. It must not be used for the benefit of the city of Cape Town alone, like it has been the case with other programs. However, members and Deputy Speaker, through you, the MEC committed in the Standing Committee that she will find ways to assist close to 1,000 safety ambassadors who have been fired by the Department of Community Safety. Not only are their contracts terminated, but some of them have not been paid for their salaries. This is a tragic and places the spotlight on these stopgap measures for youth unemployment. While we welcome the effort to assist the displaced safety ambassadors, we also call on the provincial government to find ways of bringing sustainable programs for youth employment. We note the additional 2 million allocated to conduct a review of the current youth programs relevant to skills and employment programs in the province. We hope that this will not be outsourced to DA friends and funders who are consultants. The department should have the capacity to do this in partnership with the Department of Economic Opportunities. Again, an emphasis must be placed on the need for youth development policy. Use these funds for that purpose only and not just a review of programs. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, Albert Einstein once said, and I quote, "The only thing that you need, that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library," end quote. The budget of library and archive services is reduced from 454.9 million in the 2021-22 main appropriation to 445.8 million in this budget. The budget for library services decreased from 408 million to 376 million. The department's budget is not even half the city's budget for library services. In actual fact, Deputy Speaker, this budget, with all the expectations that we have in this department, the total budget of this department is even less than what we spend on your LEAP officers in the Department of Community Safety. And it is not enough to want to further reduce that of this department. It will lead to further collapse of libraries, especially in the poor rural communities. It is regrettable that the department plans to close down a number of libraries in our communities. We call upon the MEC and her department to stop the City of Cape Town from closing the Plumstead library. This decision makes no sense, and absolutely no sense. The decision is not only an act of provocation, but it is also an insult to that community. We know the crucial role that libraries play in our communities as spaces of access to reading and studying. If the city finds it rough to sustain having the library in the current facility, surely it can be shifted to a cheaper venue. We wish also to take this opportunity, Deputy Speaker, to commend the leaders and activists in Ward 63 for championing this matter and call on them not to lose sight and continue to fight so that we ensure that we protect the interest of the people of that particular ward to access libraries. Deputy Speaker, we want an urgent implementation of the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act of 2019. While the Department of Local Government is taking the lead on this, it is disappointing that not much progress has been made in terms of establishing the House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders in the province. It is disappointing that this department has not set aside funding to support the implementation of this act in the province. Speaker, the 5 million allocated for major events is cautiously welcomed, but we need more resources to support grassroots sports, recreation, and arts and culture. And it is on those bases that we cautiously welcome that 5 million, because we do not want it, Deputy Speaker, to just be spent on the big events without a substantial benefit to the grassroots level athletes and your sports young people. We remain disappointed that the budget does not make additional funding for sports infrastructure upgrades. Our sporting infrastructure across the Cape Flats rural regions are dilapidated. The Philippines Stadium, which was developed as a practice venue and fan park for 2010 FIFA World Cup, is one good example. We need a revised strategy for the implementation of the municipal infrastructure grant for sport and recreation infrastructure. We are not convinced that in the current form it serves the purpose. What we see is the unwillingness of the DA municipalities to also use this municipal infrastructure grant optimally to ensure that it responds to the infrastructure challenges, especially in your poor and marginalized parts of the Western Cape. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, I want to conclude by calling for the department to provide more additional funding for the legacy project for the 2023 Netball World Cup. Many young people, especially in the rural regions, are passionate about netball but lack opportunities. I've been raising the case of the West Coast where there is a serious lack of netball facilities in poor working class communities. We're aware of the funding that the department gives to the whites only West Coast Netball Union, but this does not translate into development in poor working class communities. The ANC Deputy Speaker, for the reasons provided above, and the mere fact that we're not convinced that this budget will be able to address or respond to vision priority 6, we do not support this particular vote. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, and all the best to Honourable Barnes on the birth of her baby. I now recognise Honourable Kleho.
Thanks very much, Deputy Speaker.
1 minute, Honourable Kleho, just take your seat for 1 minute. Chief Whip, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just for clarity, should we hold proceedings until the guests arrive?
Oh.
We were asked to hold proceedings for the guests of the ANC, but I don't see any in the gallery.
No, I don't. I'm sorry. No. Unfortunately, we can't. Are you asking formally? All right. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Whip. We will continue with Honourable Kleho. You may begin.
Thanks. Whilst the department claims that a large portion of their budget is spent on the provision of library services and the purchasing of library material, like the Honourable Kama has said, as the EFF were also concerned with the decision to phase out mobile library services, providing services to 28 stops within the city of Cape Town. We are also concerned about the potential closure of libraries in Plumstead and Tiger Valley, which are proposed to close sometime in April 2022. The closure of these libraries will affect the elderly, the unemployed, and the disabled who depend on these library services. Most unemployed people do not have resources such as access to Wi-Fi, which is important when it comes to online job applications. Staff members from these libraries have been very helpful to people from low-income communities as they have been able to assist them with their creation of CVs and as well as accessing other important reading materials. Now people in these communities are forced to travel long distances to other locations in order to access library services. Some of the people merely depend on the 350 rand that the government grants for the COVID period. Now they must spend this money to transport in order for them to access libraries. Another issue that is concerning is the fact that the department does not support and promote access to different sporting codes in townships. The department just pays a lip service that they support and promote access to different sporting codes in lower income communities. However, such initiative is not even allocated a budget in order to establish facilities to that effect. Similarly to schools in townships who lack these facilities. How will children in townships have passion in swimming, cricket, rugby, hockey, and other sporting codes if they do not have facilities to train and participate and partake in such activities? We are a factory of gangsters. We are a factory of seeing to it that we manufacture the criminals that are looming and roaming in our streets. It is for this reason that the EFF will not support this vote. And we further appeal also on the Premier. We have seen what he has done with the cycling tours and everything else, promoting of certain sporting codes that will never be found in townships. And in that regard, we want to see him letting up the very same kind of sporting codes and promotion of such sporting codes in our communities. We must go to the people of Kosovo, Danun. We want to see him in Philippi, Marikana, and other areas, of which are part and parcel of his constituencies, and stop hiding in leafy suburbs where he can be able to roam around as much as he wants without any potential upliftment of the previously disadvantaged.
Thank you.
For that reason, therefore, Deputy Speaker, we do not support this vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now recognize Honourable Murray.
Baie dankie, Speaker. Thank you. Minister, you are so good that you've got a multiplicity of portfolios, sport, culture, and even community safety. But sport is an integrated activity, not limited to a specific ethnic group, whereas culture is unique to one group. So the two of them must be viewed differently. It defines my identity as a person within a community. And that is why I'm making a call on you for recognition of my people, the Griqua, die Griqua. Hulle was die kinders wat die Hollanders, wat hier gekom het in die Kaap, by die Koekoe gemeenskap vrouens gehad het. Ons het getrek voor die Afrikaners. Ons het ons eie groot trek gehad. En hierdie boek het ek vir die minister 'n kopie van gegee, nou net om het te lees. Die geskiedenis van my mense. Ons het getrek en ons het grond besit. Campbell, Douglas, Delport, Hoop, Priska, Koereman, Daniel Skuil, Nikkers, Hoop, Pella, Riemvasmaak, Kokstad, Philippolis. Dit was allemaal ons grond. Van die Griekwa behoort, ons het ons eie volkslied. Ons soek erkenning. Ons wil hê, ons moet 'n wet hierso die lig laat sien wat erkenning gee in terme van die nuwe wet van 2015, Traditional Leaders in Khoisan-Bill, dat ons kry Weskaap se erkenning vir die Griekwa Koningshuis onder Messelaar en vir die Griekwa Nasionale Konferensie onder meneer Lefleur. Hulle is die direkte afstammelinge van ons leiers Waterboer en de Kok. En ek vra dat ons asseblief ernstig daarna kyk. Ek wil vir u sê, ons het selfs ons eie volkslied. Ons het ons eie volkslied en as ons hier reg kry, sal ons ons eie volkslied graag hierso in hierdie land wil sing.
Dankie, achtbare lid. Jou tyd is nou op.
Die Griekwa se tyd gaan aan, maar my tyd is seker op. Ek vra net dat u tog asseblief laat ons tyd aangaan. Dankie.
Baie dankie, achtbare lid. Thank you very much. I now recognize Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. There are too few facilities within reach. Thank you, Speaker. There are too few facilities within reach of the people on the Cape Flats. Recreational facilities play a crucial role in the development of youth. Numerous researchers have revealed that sports and fitness centers, parks, libraries, and cultural centers play a crucial role in keeping young people away from crime. Yet we find that libraries are being closed, and one particular library in Strand that has burned down, but no allocation in this budget to repair that library is mentioned. A call is made to the MEC. Maybe the MEC can include the Strand library that is burned down in next year's budget. There should be a greater call from the province to the private sector to serve the needs of youth in the sports arena. Not enough is being done to stop youth from being part of recreational facilities due to economic constraints. The province must invest more into recreational facilities for youth, ensure these facilities are well managed, and a draw card to the youth to occupy themselves with constructive facilities. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brinkhuis. I now recognise Honourable Allen.
Good. Goeiedag, adjunct Speaker. Ek ag dit 'n voorreg om deel te neem in hierdie debat. And allow me to formally welcome everyone. I would want to say good day, goeiedag, molweni nonke. I might want to even go further and say molweni nonke ingigama lika Jesu Christu, because like Member Brinkhuis said, whether you believe in what Member Brinkhuis believes or what others believe, or even if you don't believe, it has been a difficult time. It has been an extremely difficult time for so many people. And Member Kama is right when he says that we need to continue to help struggling artists. So I will appeal to Member Kama is to please speak to National. Let us be clear that we are sending a message. The DA in the Western Cape, the ANC in the Western Cape is sending a clear message to National that our struggling artists should be supported. I firmly believe that the increase should happen. And I will get to my speech now. I have sufficient time this afternoon. So I would want to say that I wanted to see that we breach the 1 billion rand. But later on, I will touch in that regard on what I mean. But I think it will be helpful if national budget is managed properly. We have seen that instead of benefiting artists and sports people, it has benefited a few at national. They are lining their pockets, which means that our artists won't be able to stand on the podiums. Our artists won't be able to do what they are excelling in, all because monies are being lost or stolen. Also to Member Kama, you rightly note that budgeting and racial divisions. And I was keenly listening to Member Kama because it's a direct result of National's punitive measures that we put on sports people and on artists in terms of quota systems. So we would want to appeal to Member Kama to work with us. We would stand fully behind you as we send a clear message to the ANC at the national level. But also, Deputy Speaker, I want to say that it is often said in sports, the more you prepare, the luckier you become. The more you practice, the luckier you become. And I would appeal to some members of the opposition, read the annual performance plan. Prepare, practice, so that your contribution will be meaningful. I will put that appeal because we want that from our artists, we want that from our sports people, and they expect it from us as members of parliament to be prepared when we come here so that we don't sing from the same hymn book year in and year out and not recognize the good work that this department is doing. Those that are sitting to my left are doing amazing work, ably led by Mr. Guy Redmond, and we have seen it constantly. So those that wear red, you often see red in the face of not ever supporting anything, not even supporting anything at the national level. But we do know they don't even support artists. They support no one. And we know they are only supporting themselves. They have a leader that is clear to only support himself and those that are close to him. So let me say this. Last week, the Provincial Minister of Finance, the Honourable David Mania, tabled a budget to push this province forward. And Deputy Speaker, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport in particular has seen the impact of the ongoing state of disaster over the last 2 financial years. The imposed physical distancing, the cancelled events, the limiting of spectator participation, all of these measures, Deputy Speaker, have impacted the department's ability to implement its far-reaching mandate. But this department has also showed that it is willing to evolve, that it is willing to reimagine the present and the future. And in doing so, we have seen that this department has tabled a budget that will indeed push this province forward, and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport in the Western Cape will move forward. But before I get into the detail of Vote 13, because many don't prepare, Deputy Speaker, I believe it will be prudent to look to the past year. The loss of income and opportunities for the sports community, together with the limited opportunities for those in the creative spaces, has had a profound and lasting effect on the sport, arts and culture sector, like Member Kama rightly indicated. But much of this department's work over the last financial year has focused on mitigating these effects and ensuring that those who participate in these sectors remain able to do so. But let's firstly consider the after-school program. The department extended its programs to no and low-fee learners across the province. The department was able to professionalize the sector by upskilling practitioners and develop quality program norms and standards in the sector. I've engaged a number of these I've engaged a number of those practitioners, and I'm happy to report that the department has been able to support 411 schools with various after-school programs. This is an achievement which represents an increase of 165 schools, 11 more than what was originally planned, all because the department planned. Furthermore, these programs do more than simply help and occupy our young people. They provide a safe space for our young citizens to grow and develop without becoming subject to social ills which would otherwise threaten them. Deputy Speaker, in terms of community safety, and Member Kama touched on it. Member Kama was in local government this morning. Member Kama, I saw you in community safety, so please allow me to also touch on a bit of community safety beforehand. In terms of community safety, many believe that policing is the only answer. This could not be more incorrect. Preventative measures aimed at reducing antisocial behaviors, such as these programs, represent a crucial component of our efforts to keep our communities safe and to protect our children from patterns of gangsterism and crime. But by making sure that the youngest members of our society are able to grow and develop in a safe environment, this budget does that to move us forward. But secondly, let's further consider programs under the library services, which came out quite a lot this afternoon. The department provides library services points across the entire province, from the city of Cape Town right to the smallest rural communities in our province. In the last year, the department has gone one step further and has ensured that the blind and visually impaired people across the province would also have access to internet and reading materials, free of charge. But more so, Deputy Speaker, I have visited one of these mini libraries for the visually impaired, and I have been amazed by how this initiative allows for those with dyslexia, blindness, or limited literacy skills to access educational resources and to enjoy the literature. Initiatives such as these ensure that the differently abled are able to push forward with us. But finally, Deputy Speaker, a multitude of other programs seek to develop our citizens through the avenues of culture and sport. These include the Yebo program, which provides young people with experience and training in these fields, and the mod centers, which we as a committee have visited. Furthermore, we continue the promotion and healthy and active lifestyles, lifelong activities, and environmental awareness. And of course, Deputy Speaker, our young people are increasingly exposed to next level participation and talent identification through school leagues and the growth of our neighboring schools program. But like I've said, I will take my time because many have clearly not prepared. And I may also at this time say that I also welcome the birth of baby Azania or Azania. And I may or may not be a godfather at this moment in time. But these interventions, Deputy Speaker, together with the work done in terms of sport and recreation, school sport and club development programs, all play a role towards pushing our province forward. Against this backdrop, I firmly believe that the department will be able to continue and expand its excellent work in the coming year. I'm sure that many in this House, as well as those in the department, would have liked to see the department reach the 1 billion rand allocation for the financial year. Believe me, I do. However, I welcome the 913 million allocated. This is an increase of over 37 million rand or 4.2% from the 2020-23 estimate contained in last year's budget. I will go through a list and clearly state that each and every program has increased, from Program 1 Administration, Cultural Affairs, Library and Archive Services, and Sport and Recreation, all increased. But Speaker, but like I've mentioned, the previous year will allow the department to push forward with the new financial year. With this, the department's budget is still influenced by the COVID-19 recovery, which is aligned to the Western Cape Recovery Plan. The how we push forward excites me, as this department, despite the effects of COVID-19, remain committed to their vision. That is why they are even here today as a senior management. And this is to encourage excellence and inclusiveness in sport and culture through the effective, efficient, and sustainable use of its resources. Because even with less than R1 billion, if you spend the money correctly, you will be able to see the value. Wat baat het ons het R10 biljoen, maar ons spandeer hierdie geld regie. So we would want National to spend the money correctly so that the Western Cape can also be reached in that regard. The Western Cape is not an island. National need to play their role. Imagine 3 people living in the same house. For example, member Kama, member Mackenzie, and member Dan Plato is all living in the same house. And at this particular house, each one of them have a responsibility. Member Kama is responsible for utilities. Member Plato is responsible for food. And Member Kama is and Member Mackenzie is responsible for the rent. If one of them don't bring their share, if one of them steal, I don't know who will steal. And I doubt anyone in this house would want to steal because we have fostered valuable relationships. So I don't think any of those members would want to steal. But if one of them don't bring their share, it's going to cause friction in the household. The electricity will be switched off. Lack of opportunities will present itself, all because one did not play their role. So when we talk about the city of Cape Town as a sphere of government, they are bringing their part. When we talk about the Western Cape government, we are bringing our part to push this province forward. But when we talk about the ANC at the national level needing to play their role, niks maak nie. So that is why we would want the house, if we want to call it a caravan house, because we are on the move and we are pushing forward, or whatever we want to call it, it is to the benefit of everyone in our province. Deputy Speaker, if I consider youth unemployment in our province and in South Africa, we all know that it has skyrocketed in the country. And to move forward, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport will continue to champion 3 important economic sectors, namely sport, the creative arts sector, and the cultural sector, which together creates a substantial amount of jobs and work opportunities. But let me pause there quickly. We've always been clear in terms of creating those work opportunities. It's never, ever to keep any young person stuck in one of those job opportunities. That can never be, because we would want to see people excel. Those are created so that people get experience, they are exposed to work, and they are finding their feet so that they do become more employable. So it's never to keep someone only in sub A or in sub B, but it's always to strive for excellence, always to push forward. Because that's why DCAS is also the champion for youth development and has woven addressing the needs of the not in education, employment or training into several of its programs. And for those that have not prepared, allow me to take my time, because in a soccer match, you would want to enjoy the game. You would want to take your time because people are listening. There are people that pay attention to what we do in the Western Cape, all because we are mostly measured at a different standard. And because of that, we know that we need to do so much more. We know that we need to not only pull up our socks, but we need to do and do and do. And that's what we are willing to do, basically. So for those that did not prepare, funding public library staff and creating jobs through the upgrading and building of new libraries. Member Brinkhuis, during the committee meeting when you mentioned the Strand library, that was ventilated and addressed in the committee, and I'm looking forward to getting that feedback from the department so that we can send it on to all the members and address that particular issue. But also the department is contributing to the creation of opportunities for growth and jobs by facilitating the rollout of broadband and expansion of free internet connectivity and technology resources in public libraries in rural communities. So not only the city of Cape Town, but each and every community here in the Western Cape, because we know libraries provide job seekers with opportunities to create their CVs on computers, look for jobs in newspapers and online, and do online applications. Also, we know that public libraries also provide computer and internet access points used by small business entrepreneurs for developing business plans, accessing tenders, and other administrative duties. Furthermore, there's work opportunities that are created through the establishment of new interpretation centers and sites linked to the cradle of human culture tourism route. Deputy Speaker, furthermore, to empower people, the department provides platforms and training to give communities a voice. And with its libraries, oral history, arts and youth programs, it empowers people's stories by also providing education. For those in the sport and in the art sector, DCAS provides exposure and a pathway to mastery. DCAS focuses on youth through programs such as the MOD centers, and the Year Beyond provides them with a sense of purpose, dreams, and future. I would be more than happy to share some of those bullet points that I have here for those that have not prepared. So I will skip that one part to get to the juicy bit. And I know many will be wanting to clap hands. But before you get there, Member Kama, let me go. Deputy Speaker, through its mobility and spatial transformation priority, the department is present in every town in this province. For example, social infrastructure such as libraries, sports facilities, and museums and archives. So we do know, and even the previous HOD said to us as a committee that DCAS touches every fabric of society, and we have seen that. So we would want that to continue as a committee and see that the good work continue. But Speaker, again, like I've mentioned, this budget is aligned to the Western Cape Recovery Plan. And this is how the department will contribute to the COVID-19 recovery plan, by promoting jobs recovery through the ease of doing business by the Heritage Western Cape, and by providing work opportunities through Year Beyond and the EPWP, but also by prioritizing well-being recovery, by building a culture of citizenship, service and community with a focus on young people, volunteerism, safety and jobs, supporting the first 1,000 days and the ECD interventions, and promoting physical, emotional and spiritual wellness through nutrition, exercise and physio support across all ages. But Deputy Speaker, in closing, I wish to further highlight that the Year Beyond programs aims to give more than 1,000 young people between the ages of 18 and 25 their first work opportunity in order to address youth unemployment. An additional 15 million has been allocated to this program, as well as an additional 2 million to review current youth programs in our province. Furthermore, 15 million has been allocated for holiday programs, which keep vulnerable young people occupied during school closures. Also, the department will continue to expand the Western Cape Community Arts Centre program. This excites me because I know with a limited budget, we do continue to push forward. The cultural centres, as mentioned by the Minister, in Melkbos, Opicia, and Skuman Sports are being assessed for their viability for private use. These assessments are being undertaken at a cost of 1.5 million. But Deputy Speaker, this cost will be recouped, as I have no doubt that the private use of these facilities will contribute towards the fiscus. Furthermore, the museums and Heritage Western Cape will continue to receive funding from the department, and I can go on and share this once I'm done. But in my second closing, Deputy Speaker, and as I mentioned earlier, that I would have liked the department to reach the 1 billion allocated amount. And although we are close, this budget will allow for those in the various sectors to work their magic, to reach those milestones, to break those records, to represent our country, and to create and to ultimately see a return on investment, which will be way, way above the 1 billion rand mark. So Speaker, hereby again, I wish to express my support for the vote and ensure that the residents of the Western Cape, including those that were invited by the opposition, to continue, and that we will continue our rigorous oversight over the department. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Minister Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Dankie vir elke lid wat deelgeneem het. Thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate your input, your constructive criticism. It all makes the department better. Thank you, Chairperson Regan Allen, Honourable Regan Allen, vir die leiding en konstruktiewe oorsig. Then, my sincere appreciation to HOD Redmond and our team, your team, and our entire department for your dedication to provide world-class services to our communities under trying circumstances. And thank you for your presence in the chamber today. I really appreciate that. Then I'm going to say, Member Teko, have you ever heard of Nicholas Lamini? That's all that I'm going to ask. We developed the 16 national priority codes over the province. Then, agbare Marie, baie dankie dat u so passievol is oor u Griekwa wees. En ek wil net noem, ek wil nou net kry, dat wat ons sal moet kyk na ons nasionale, en ek gaan dit in Engels vir jou lees. Provincial constitutions are guided by the national constitution and may not be inconsistent with it as per section 104.1. For the Griekwa to be in a provincial constitution, a guideline must be sought from national so that it is not inconsistent with the constitution of the Republic. We will seek advice from the Constitutional Review Committee of the National Assembly, who may also check with Concord. En dan wil ek net volgende noem, die Nasionale Huis van die Khoisan sal gestig word na die kommissie hulle werk voltooi het. Hulle het 'n vergadering gehad op die 25ste Maart en die Deputy Minister van tradisionele sake was daar, Mr. Obed Papela, and the applications for recognition will open on the 30th of March 2022. It will open for 2 years and will close on the 29th of March 2024. And the Commission will be conducting an awareness campaign in each province, starting with the Northern Cape on the 5th of April. En hulle sal by ons wees the 10th of June, the venue to be confirmed, but it might be the Castle of Good Hope. Dis dalk net vir inligting. Then I want to say to Member Karma. Oh, first I want to say Member Aldemar, from Aldemar, Mr. Brinkhuis. Facilities fall within the ambit of the local municipality, and we can give you more detail, but it falls in the ambit of the local municipality. Thank you. Member Karma, it's concerning that you politicize this debate on racial lines when Sport and Culture Affairs in the Western Cape tries its utmost to break these barriers. Then about our artists, we have moved into recovery phase and are providing support to gig economic as well as support to our community arts centers. And I do have a list of that, and I do have all the budget to our gig economy, if I can provide that to you. About the netball legacy, we have transferred funding in the funds to the West Coast for netball facilities, to upgrade and construction of new courts. We do have an extensive netball legacy program, and maybe we can do a presentation at the standing committee one or other time that reach each district and promoting development in the code, in the netball code. Then about our youth. There is no silver bullet to solve our youth crisis. The Western Cape government focuses on parenting with its first 1,000 days program. It focuses on ensuring every child gets access to good education through the Western Cape Education Department and its partners. Through programs like the MOD program, DCAS provides school-going youth with a chance to find a positive gang and belong to a team. There are 181 MOD centers in the Western Cape. This work is strengthened via our neighbourhood program, which provides support to a further 134 schools. The Western Cape Education Department, through the Teacher Assistant Program, DOTP via the PAY program, DCAS via our Year Beyond, and DOCS via Chrysalis and the LEAP program provides school leavers with a first work opportunity. And I can go on with all this, I can provide this to you as well. And DCAS has directly supported about 100,000 school-going learners and 3,000 plus out-of-school youth through its various programs. In Kalicha, we provide 113 youth Year Beyond opportunities, 37 work opportunities for coaches, and supports almost 5,000 learners through these programs. 50% is outside of the metro. And the Western Cape has a youth policy which guides the work of all departments, focuses on strong foundations and parenting, education, economic opportunities, creating opportunities for belonging, and opportunities for second chances or connection. And I will bless the Youth Safety Ambassadors in vote 4 because that's under that vote. Then the last thing that I want to mention is then school athletics. I know it is a concern, and I just want to mention that our department has a mandate to work with and support the federation structures. And we support the provincial championships, the accommodation, the meals, the extra ablution facilities, medical support, transport, human resources with DCAS staff volunteering to assist at both the high and primary schools events over the 2 weekends. A full debrief will take place in April-May 2022 to address all challenges regarding schools athletics, and all the various stakeholders will be part of this debrief, including Western Cape Provincial Sport Confederation, Western Cape School for Athletics, Federation delegates, and the Western Cape Education Department. I think that's everything so far. Thank you so much, and thank you again for everyone participating.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on Vote 13, Cultural Affairs and Sports Western Cape Appropriation Bill. Mr. Stamela, you will read the 4th order of the day, please. Thank you.
Ivoti yesine yomthetho yilwayo yolwabiwo-mali yesebe lokhuseleko loluntu eNtshona Kapa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stamela. I recognize Honourable Minister Murray.
Speaker,
Yeah, 1 minute, Honourable Minister, if you can take your seat. Honourable Murray.
To be excused. I enjoyed the sitting, but I've got something urgent to attend to.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member, but you don't need to put it on record. Thank you. You may depart. That gave you a breather, Honourable Minister. Minister, you may begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Minister, maybe you just want to take your seat. I don't know if you've got guests arriving, and just for them to swap. I didn't realize there's a change. Sorry, my apologies. I'll give you a few seconds just to gather your breath. Are you expecting guests, Honourable Minister? Okay, there we go. We'll just wait for them to take their seats.
They're the most important.
You may begin, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Today I present the Western Cape Department of Community Safety, or DOCS, appropriation budget for the 2022-23 financial year, acknowledging safety as a key priority of the Western Cape Government as we bring into fruition the Provincial Safety Plan. I am indeed honoured to have been entrusted with this significant role as Acting Minister to ensure the continuity of the pivotal programs of the Department of Community Safety. The lack of safety in our communities is one of the foremost challenges we face as a country, and with this appropriation budget to now be presented, the Department will fulfil its constitutional mandate of oversight to improve safety for all who call the Western Cape home. To create safer communities and to further promote professional policing through effective oversight as legislated, and to capacitate safety partnerships with communities and other stakeholders, the total budget allocated to the department has increased from just over 559.3 million from the adjusted appropriation 2021-22 to approximately 776.1 million in the 2022-23 financial year. The increase of 38.7% to the appropriated budget is indeed welcomed, as it mainly relates to the allocation of 400 million to the Law Enforcement Advancement Plan, or the LEAP officers, of which the previous allocation and adjustment budget for 2021-22 was 165.2 million. Regardless of political affiliation, I am sure we can all agree that the LEAP program has made significant strides in a Western Cape safety plan in its efforts to halve the murder rate by 2029, informed by evidence and implemented using data and technology to create safer communities in the Western Cape. To emphasize the successes of the Provincial Safety Plan's interventions in response to the all-round under-resourcing within the South African Police Service in the Western Cape, I call to mind the recent release of the quarterly crime statistics for the third quarter of 21-22. Deputy Speaker, covering the period of October to December 2021, the statistics show a 6.9% decrease in murder and a 24.5% decrease in attempted murder compared to the previous quarter in the province. It demonstrates clearly that our Provincial Safety Plan interventions are making a difference. We have seen decreases in the murder rate at Kraaifontein at 40.5%, Harare at 14.5%, Kailicha at 21.1%, and Nyanga 24.1%. These account for the most significant decreases in murders among the top 30 murder stations in the country, and are also areas in which we have deployed significant LEAP resources as part of our plan to reduce the murder rate by 50% by 2029. Since the inception of the plan, 1,056 LEAP officers have been deployed to crime hotspots. The working hours of these LEAP members were also extended to a 24-hour shift system, which resulted in an increase in deployments over weekends when murders increased according to our data. Furthermore, a reaction unit consisting of LEAP members was established to urgently respond to outbreaks of violence when it occurs. Decreased in criminal activity in the Western Cape over the past quarter were further recorded for sexual offences at 10.7%, assault, gross bodily harm at 5.6%, common assault at 1.2%, common robbery at 8.9%, and robbery with aggravating circumstances at 10.9%. Deputy Speaker, there are of course areas in which we have seen increases in criminal activity, which include attempted sexual offences, bank robbery, malicious damage to property, and commercial crime. This department will, with the budgetary investment of 700 million over the next 2 years for the LEAP program, play its part to give effect to its constitutional mandate of oversight, ensuring that gaps are identified to address them, making the province safer for all who live in it. As outlined by Premier Wendy in the State of Province address, the department intends to take this oversight role even more seriously, and not only at a national level, but at a local level as well, because the whole of society and the whole of government approach is pivotal to creating safer communities. Going forward, the department will significantly expand its monitoring of police stations across the province with a focus on GBV and domestic violence responses, police conduct, visible policing, and crime investigation efficiency. The department will also accordingly be renamed the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety in the Western Cape. Guided by this collaborative approach, the department will implement an evidence-based and holistic transversal response to violence in our society with a sense of urgency. The purpose is to achieve safe and cohesive communities in the Western Cape. Its realization is an imperative as crime and fragmented communities reduce the life chances and opportunities of individuals, further destabilizing communities in a vicious cycle and hinder socio-economic and personal development. To strengthen our partnership in relation to the Provincial Safety Plan to afford safer spaces, The expansion of the Chrysalis Academy will receive 25.2 million over the MTF period of 2022-2024. To further roll out the safety plan at the district level, 6 million will be provided in the 22-23 financial year. The EPWP will receive 26.1 million, of which 3.8 million is a conditional grant. The Neighbourhood Watch Resourcing will receive 5.7 million. I'm happy to announce that the department is currently looking to increase this support as the budget and capacity allows. To boost the department's support to municipalities for K9 units, 8.8 million has been allocated. Deputy Speaker, I'm indeed proud of the commendable efforts successfully executed by the K9 units across the province. This weekend past, on 25th of March 2022, the joint operations between the Malmesbury SAPS and the Swartland K9 unit led to the arrest of 4 adult females and 1 adult male for dealing in tik and for possession of ammunition. The following day, on 26th of March 2022, the joint operation between Malmesbury Crime Prevention Unit and the Swartland K9 unit led to the arrest of 9 adult males for the possession of an illegal firearm, which was later identified by its serial number as the same firearm earlier booked in and stolen from the SAP 13 at the police station. We wholeheartedly thank the K9 units in partnership with the respective municipalities for the life-saving measures they actively have in place, risking their own lives to create safer communities for all those who call it home. We look forward to expanding these much-needed K9 units to other municipalities in the near future, of which Mossel Bay is next in line. A total of 6.9 million has been allocated for the resourcing of reaction units at Swartland Municipality and Overstrand District Municipality. The department will continue to drive the reduction of alcohol harms through the amendments to the Western Cape Liquor Act and will submit a publication of amendments to the Western Cape Liquor Regulations in respect of fees and fines to be paid in terms of the Act. As the department is mandated to lead and direct a task team to review amend the Western Cape Liquor Act to take forward public health-based alcohol harms reduction strategies and interventions, the Western Cape Liquor Authority will receive its annual allocation of 45.6 million. As we take our provincial safety plan to the next level, a new violence prevention unit will be established in the Western Cape's Department of Health. This unit will use public health data to identify localized strategies to prevent violence before it occurs. Deputy Speaker, the latest crime statistics released also clearly show that the establishment of murder stations and priority areas for area-based teams is helping to reduce crime through a data-led and evidence-based approach to fighting crime, which includes both law enforcement and violence prevention interventions. Beyond deploying additional law enforcement advancement plan law enforcement officers, the department has established the ABT framework, which aims to collaborate with safety stakeholders at the local level. These ABTs are comprised of 3 crucial arms to ensure violence prevention, which includes law enforcement, urban design, and social cohesion, which continue to be onboarded. To date, a total of 16 ABT areas, which are linked to police stations, have been identified. This includes 11 ABTs in the city of Cape Town and 5 ABTs in the district municipalities. The department have further established the law enforcement technical area teams in these areas with a specific focus on areas with the highest rate of murder. The Western Cape has identified the 11 priority areas in the metro based on their high murder rates. Based on a third quarter crime statistics, reported murders in those areas accounted for 42.23% of the provincial total. The overall number of murders committed within the 11 ABTs, however, has been reduced by 9.35% in the last quarter, showing that the ABT approach is indeed yielding results. Deputy Speaker, as mentioned in the second reading debate, I note the concern within the community policing forum structures in the Western Cape regarding what the impact of the establishment of the Provincial Secretariat in terms of Section 16 of the Civilian Secretariat for Police Act 2 of 2011 will be on a continued existence and operation of community policing forums. I want to reaffirm that the Western Cape Government, through its Department of Community Safety, is committed to fulfill its mandate conferred by Section 206 of the Constitution, Section 66 and 68 of the Constitution of the Western Cape, as well as Section 5 of the Western Cape Community Safety Act. This mandate, amongst other things, includes monitoring police conduct and overseeing the effectiveness and efficiency of the police service in the province by assisting community policing forums through the provision of funding, training and resources in order to promote good relationships between the South African Police Service and communities, which will in turn make the Western Cape a safer place for all. It is for this reason that we are awaiting legal advice on the best way forward. Deputy Speaker, together it's our duty to create an enabling environment through which all those we serve can thrive and feel a sense of safety, because contrary to popular belief, we need to understand that we are not a people at risk, but rather a people with potential. Despite the many challenges, there exist praiseworthy initiatives in the streets of the Western Cape, and it's long overdue that we showcase these life-changing efforts and build on its successes rather than only perpetuate our adversities. Our role is not only to liberate society once more, but to liberate the minds of society. While the task may seem great, we have power in numbers, and together we can create safer communities in the Western Cape. In conclusion, I'll wholeheartedly thank the officials of the Department of Community Safety, our partners in the various municipalities and sister Western Cape government departments, the South African Police Service and local law enforcement for the collaboration in creating safer and more cohesive communities in the Western Cape. I also thank the SAP's provincial leadership, led by General Patekile, for the good spirit of cooperation they continue to adopt as critical partners in our fight against crime. Deputy Speaker, evidently, in a dismal national fiscal environment, adopting a whole of society and a whole of government approach inculcating collaborative efforts through sustainable partnerships is much needed to achieve our mutual goals to enable safer and cohesive communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise Honourable Kalmer.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, Honourable Acting MEC, members of the House, and let me also greet the chairs of our committees who I now see have decided to adopt the role of being deputy MECs and speak for the departments instead of leading us in our quest to exercise oversight over the executive. Deputy Speaker, a few weeks ago, we were gutted by news of the several multi-shootings across the Cape Flats. In Gugulethu and Khayelitsha, there were a number of reported mass murders, including the murders of women. The Western Cape continued to resemble killing fields. And in that note, I think we also want to welcome the arrests that have been made in connection with the mass murderers that happened in Khayelitsha, where 6 people lost their lives, and call on the NPA to do everything at its disposal to ensure that it achieves a conviction and imprisonment. The fact that after a number of years of pumping funds to the so-called safety plan, and yet our people continue to die like flies, is unfathomable and leaves a lot to be desired. It is a clear indication that the safety plan is a big and an expensive failure. Even in this budget, the plan gets the largest share. The department's budget allocation for the year increased with 216.8 million from 559.3 million for the 2021-22 revised estimates to 776.1 million for the 2022-23 financial year. This increase is mainly for the Law Enforcement Advancement Plan, which will be transferred to the City of Cape Town. The other funding will go towards the professionalization of the neighborhood watches and to fund the law enforcement reaction units. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, our stance on the safety plan is clear and known to all. While in principle we welcome additional resources to fight crime, especially in the mega hotspot areas, we are concerned that there is no investment towards addressing the causative factors of violent crimes in these particular areas. The recent weeks have once more showed why the safety plan in its current form will not yield the desired outcome of halving the murder rate by 2029. We repeat that until such a time where we stop paying lip service to addressing causative factors of violent crimes, then we will not win the battle. The environmental design, as popularly mentioned by many, but not really taken into consideration in terms of implementation by this government, particularly looking at spatial planning, is instrumental for the creation of a safer environment. As part of the safety plan, Deputy Speaker, departments like human settlement, local government should be tasked to create a favorable environment for policing, including installing of street lights and CCTV cameras in the communities that are found in the top 30 murder precincts, and by improving accessibility in the informal settlements. This budget has ignored this. Instead, the department will continue funding establishment and support of K9 dog units, facilitation of safety plan for district municipalities, and provisioning of the latest technology relating to safety and security for the CBD. We are not in support of this. We want CCTV cameras and related safety and security technology in the mega hotspots, not in the CBD. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, no one must be mistaken to think that we do not support the safety plan. When the Premier announced it with so much fanfare in the National Assembly, we were the first to say we welcome it in principle, as it presented a paradigm shift away from a provincial government of armchair critiques towards investing in violence prevention. However, we had a lot of reservations about it. Firstly, the mass murders of recent weeks placed a spotlight over the decision to cut the LEAP officers from 3,000 to only 1,000. But seemingly, Deputy Speaker, it looks like it's accepted that the Premier continues now and again to pronounce different things and later implement other things. Firstly, there are not enough LEAP officers to deploy to areas like Manenberg, for instance, where there is an ongoing gang war. The department cannot even establish an area-based team there. It only deploys the law enforcement reaction unit comprised of only 63 members responsible for the entire metro. The ongoing gang wars and mass murders are an indictment on the Premier and his government to increase the number of deployed LEAP officers. Secondly, we raised even that the safety plan in this current format was to create the DA Provincial Police Force. This was confirmed by the officials in the committee that during the hard lockdown, these LEAP officers were used by people like J.P. Smith to do their dirty job in the city of Cape Town, which included the evicting of poor and vulnerable informal settlement dwellers under a difficult period of the pandemic. Who knows what else did this chap use these LEAP officers to do? Did he use them to spy on former MEC Fritz? Smith is notoriously known for misusing state resources to target his nemesis. It is no surprise that he was the first to know about former MEC's sex for jobs scandals. Lastly, our biggest fear that we were pumping money into something we have control or oversight over became true and was confirmed by officials in the committee meeting. When we posed questions about the accountability for the millions we spend on the LEAP officers, we were shocked to learn that there is no legislative framework we can use to exercise oversight over law enforcement officers. What this means is that we are spending millions every year on this program, but we cannot hold J.P. Smith accountable for how he spends it or how he deploys these officers. The only thing binding the department and the city is a mere business plan, and it ends there. Speaker, this is, Deputy Speaker, this is unacceptable and deserves the legislature's full attention. We need an urgent legal advice on this matter. It is not correct that we invest money on a program we do not have oversight powers over. This confirms our fears that choosing to invest law enforcement officers over the Metro Police this confirms our fears that choosing to invest on law enforcement officers over the Metro Police was a deliberate move to create a DA police force that would only be accountable to the DA. Not even the police ombudsman can keep an eye on these law enforcement officers. The plans to amend the Western Cape Community Safety Act to give the ombudsman oversight responsibility over law enforcement officers will be halted following a legal advice that this was not possible. We must tighten our oversight mechanisms. We must hold J.P. Smith before this House to account for all the millions we have given to the city over the years. The business plan must be amended to make it compulsory for Smith and the city to account to the legislature on quarterly basis and annually. If this is not possible, then we might as well halt funding for the program until such a time that there is accountability for it. The ANC has already expressed its views not to support this budget in the committee. Today we are presented with an opportunity to state the reasons for our opposition. The first is that for many years, this department has ignored its core mandate of police oversight. The HOD told the standing committee that this department is failing on its oversight role. It has never conducted inspection on all 151 police stations in a year. This is partly due to not having staff to do the work. The department has been assigning staff and resources to unfunded mandates. Instead of addressing the problem, the Premier opts to make a premature announcement of changing the department's name as if there are people who are confused as to what is the role of this department. This was made with no knowledge or consultations, with the officials. Had he consulted the Premier, would have known or would have been told that this is not an easy and a straightforward process, as he first needs to make a request even to the President of the country. The department will now repurpose some of its staff members to the unit and that will conduct police station investigations. There must be additional funding set aside for this purpose. It is a known secret that we have so many rogue elements in the police service, and we need a vibrant oversight unit in the department to arrest that rot. But I must warn the department that this inspection unit must not be used like the court-watching briefs who are currently used as a DA pocket knife to target and expose the failures of the national department. This department must tell us why these court-watching briefs have failed to monitor the ongoing cases of Farrell Payne and Wesley Bakis, who are the two senior provincial government officials who are in court for sexual crimes. Honorable Deputy Speaker and members, in most matters in the province, a gun was used as a weapon. It is on those bases that the ANC calls for the strengthening of government's ammunition control system. We should investigate how codification and registration of ammunition will help in rendering the many illegal firearms useless and assist SAPS in combating and investigate crime. This budget will also go towards funding the area-based teams to enhance law enforcement and violence prevention initiatives in communities. What we know about these area-based teams is that they have led to the department terminating the expanded partnership program. In line with the Western Cape Safety Act, the EPP was aimed at enhancing the efficiency and sustainability of community policing forums and to promote their activities and functions. The new funding model, as explained by the department, will benefit those CPFs that completed AGMs, received certificate, and applied for project funding. The department is coercing CPFs to partner with area-based teams, and it will find APT initiatives in communities. This is an attempt to capture the CPFs and have them under DA control. Elsis River and Manenberg, I repeat, Deputy Speaker, which are two communities known for constant gang wars, do not have established area-based teams. It is clearly for everyone to see, and it is for the department to acknowledge that the APT is a weak and ineffective strategy. It is for this reason that we have asked for the business plan and the terms of reference of these APTs to get full understanding of what the department aims to achieve. Deputy Speaker, in line with our calls for the department to expand the LEAP to other municipalities, we welcome the establishment of the reaction units in Swartland in Overstrand municipality. However, 20 members in each municipality are insufficient. Additionally, we note the rollout of a new K9 unit in Molsey Bay municipality on top of the units operating in the city, Overstrand and Swartland municipality. We must state upfront that we are vehemently opposed to the leasing of K9 dogs from a private company in Swartland. It is a strategy aimed again at enriching DA members and funders at the expense of taxpayers. Together with the honorable members of the Standing Committee, we have agreed that these K9 units are needed in Beaufort West, in Knysna, in Laingsburg municipalities to assist the work of SAPS there. The department told us that the original plan was to send them to these municipalities, but due to incapacity of the municipalities to handle K9 dogs, they were then sent elsewhere. This explanation is unacceptable, and the department could have partnered with other local government to capacitate these municipalities. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker and honorable members, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Member Mackenzie to the committee. I'm not privy to all the details of why he was demoted from a standing committee chair to a mere backbencher, but he has proved to be effective on this new role of his as a backbencher. Most importantly, now that he is a member of this committee and an NPL, he must account about what he knows about the sex for jobs scandals and must report everything to the police. And we must call on the Premier really to take the work of this department seriously. We're over a month now, and he has not yet appointed an MEC in that department. And we wonder, Deputy Speaker, maybe the arrival of Member Plato also in the House is making it difficult for him to take that decision. Is it going to be Member Regan? Is it going to be Chief Whip Member Wenger? Is it going to be MEC Plato? But what we say as the ANC is that that is not important. What is important is that this department must have a MEC that will hold accountable and ensure that we give hope to the people of the Western Cape who continue to face the barrel of a gun, who continue to die in these streets without any thing being done by this department. And by that, Deputy Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank all the community fighting structures for their immense contribution in the fight against crime with less to no support from the department. And in that, Deputy Speaker, I want to say, may God bless our province and our nation. Inkosi sikelele Africa. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and I appreciate the honourable members doesn't go to sleep without thinking about me and JP Smith. And I appreciate his concern. I would like to add, it's a pity that the honourable members, because I honestly don't know who they're representing. We've seen the NEC's latest report. The ANC in the Western Cape only has 3 branches out of a potential 116. So the members should really bring the members back here that actually should be here, because we don't know who they're representing in the House. Honourable Speaker, we welcome the 776 million allocated for the 2022-2023 financial year as part of Budget Vote 4 to push the Western Cape forward. That will be appropriated in this House, despite it coming against the backdrop of declining revenue, an economy in tatters due to maladministration, corruption and abuse by the national government, of which some members are in good standing. We wish to thank Minister Maree for steering the ship, as well as the officials during this most difficult period have been focused on continuing and serving the best for the residents of the Western Cape. Your hard work to all of you I really appreciate it. I would also like to express our thoughts and our prayers to the victims of crime, especially those in Menenberg and in Kailicha and many other communities over the past few weeks. We wish you God's strength during this very difficult time. I'd like to add, the honorable member referred to the firearms on the that's been used during a later shooting. And I want to thank the department and the officials. We've seen and the minister, I want to repeat what you said. During the joint operation in Malmesbury, the CPU, the Crime Prevention Unit members, and the Swartland K9 unit, that led to the arrest of the 9 adult male members for the possession of the illegal firearms, which was later identified, and this is so important, members, by its serial number, the same firearm that was earlier booked in and stolen from SAPS 13 at the police station. And I wish Honorable Vayuse Deputy Speaker Kama would inform his colleague Honorable Becky Kele that they must guard our firearms. He rightly identified the firearms are being used in the gun killings, but it's been stolen from SAPS, of which the ANC are solely responsible for. And he highlighted again the beautiful K9 unit funded and supported by this government. He should actually applaud Minister Mare and not criticizing for using this unit. And it shows the difference between what the Western Cape government is doing and what the national government is doing. And let me perhaps highlight and explain the role of the Western Cape Department of Community Safety as set up in the Constitution, Section 206, which some members seemingly still do not know. And I quote, the department is mandated to exercise oversight over law enforcement agencies in the Western Cape, including conducting oversight over SAPS, municipal services, investigating SAPS service delivery complaints carried out by the Western Cape Ombudsman, influence the allocation of police resources through consultative engagement with community-based organizations, NGOs, and faith-based organizations, among others. If seeing some members do not understand Section 206 of the Constitution. Safety is not only the responsibility of the Western Cape governments, it is a whole of society approach which we all have a responsibility to work with in our safety structure. And I want to state from the beginning, the safety plan was never only about boots on the ground. And sadly, many members do not understand this. Even though the safety plan has been in existence for 3 years now. To fight crime intelligently, we need additional officers on the ground operating with social preventative measures.
Very interesting. I spent some time.
Remember, just 1 second, somebody is not muted. Can we please mute all the... 1 minute. I'll just quickly mute. Okay. I think it's fine. That was a mistake.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Proceed.
All of which was driven by data, including dealing with the many social ills in our society. We therefore welcome the increased funding of the LEAP officers with 1.1 billion rand being allocated to the program over the next 3 years. More than that, we welcome how the Western Cape government consistently pick up where the national government fails, including spending the 5.8 million rand, which the members criticized to this for supporting the K9 units. That is how we contribute as this government to filling the void that the Western Cape government continues to fail. Here in the Western Cape, we've gone out of our way in dealing with fighting crime and allocating billions that's supposed to be spent on service delivery that the ANC government has failed to do. We have seen how our intelligence gathering services has collapsed. We all know our state security has collapsed and completely politicized. Interesting, honorable members, Minister Kele was in Mitchell's Plain in my constituency a few months ago. And that was the first time in 8 years that I saw the regional director of intelligence in an event that was also haphazardly arranged with the CPF. Not one member was invited, not JP Smith, that they so eagerly want to criticize, not the Department of Community Safety, and not the Premier himself. That is how they completely politicize the politics. If we didn't invite our neighborhood watchers and our walking bus members, that event would have been empty. If we were really politicizing, we could have told our neighborhood watchers not to go, but in the spirit of good governance and community governance, we asked them to attend. So the allocations in plan, some which Minister Mare has spoken about, should be welcome. Honorable Maria, when it comes to fighting crime intelligently, the ANC government has consistently failed to do so. And let me also quote Honorable Kama, quoted from a newspaper. If he picked up the newspaper yesterday in the Sunday Times, we've seen over 40 police officers via you, Deputy Speaker. 40 trained state security agents were allocated to the wife of former President Jacob Zuma to investigate their internal politics and how she poisoned. Now imagine, just imagine for 30 seconds, via you, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Kama, if those 40 trained state intelligence officers were allocated to Menenberg, to Khayelitsha, to Nyanga, how we could have dealt with crime intelligently in the Western Cape. So if they stop using the state security agency to fight the ANC internal battles, we would have dealt with some of these problems. And that is the crux of what is wrong in the country, the African National Congress. And that is what we should be dealing with here. Honorable Speaker, this budget is living proof of the DA governance. We consistently invest in programs while the ANC government has failed to invest. And let me come to another matter, Honorable Kama, via you, Deputy Speaker, raised in his speech, the Office of Cameras. Now, in Mitchell's Plain, my ward councillors allocated from their ward allocations 350,000 to cameras in Ward 75, Woodlands. The ANC has got many councillors in the city of Cape Town. Despite the fact they only have 3 branches, they bizarrely have many councillors. So what we've seen in the sub-council, where Mr. Sotashe is, who was, I think, their metro chairperson, has also been disbanded because they couldn't build branches. They have not allocated money from the sub-councils. So they should call their councillors and ask them, to quote the chairperson of the Khayelitsha Community Development Forum last week or 2 weeks ago, he said they must stop throwing parties in Khayelitsha and allocate their hot allocation to cameras. That is what the councillors in Mitchell's Plain are doing. They allocate their hot allocation, the same amount of money the councillors in Khayelitsha has been doing. Yes, the city provides the overall support, but the hot allocation should be done by the sub-council chairpersons of the ANC, of which they have in many of our communities, including their own councillors. They failed to do that, Honorable Deputy Speaker, and that is part of the problem in crime in many of our communities, similar with intelligence. So we welcome to monitoring this budget, Honorable Mare and your team, and to ensure that every citizen in this province have a secure future built on safety, hope, and opportunity for all. We further would like to thank our brave police officers, our traffic officials, our neighborhood watch members, our walking bus members, all our leave officers and law enforcement officers who have been committed to the safety of people in this province. The DA supports this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Kleho.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. When the 2021-2022 third quarter crime statistics were released early this year in February 2022, the Premier, Honourable Alan Winde, and the Acting Provincial Community Safety Minister were quick to take credit for the 6.9 decrease in number of murder rates and 24% decrease in attempted murder rates. They solely took credit for the reported decrease and saw them as something which would be credited to the effectiveness of the so-called safety plan. So in this province, the norm is that when there are increases reported in crime rates, national government should take blame. And when the stats decrease, then the credit should be attributed to the province. However, what is concerning and which the Premier and the Minister failed to take cognizance of is the low percentage decrease in murder and as well as assault and to cause grievously bodily harm and the common assault. These are not significant crime decreases and which one can celebrate them as a form of achievement. Recently, we have been experiencing mass killings in the provincial townships. This month alone, 8 people were shot and killed in Menenberg. 6 people were shot and killed in Nkanini informal settlement, whilst 5 other people suffered the same fate in Monwabisi Park informal settlement in Enrovi. Spending taxpayers' money without a plan which will yield results is itself crime against humanity, as it robs communities of service delivery. The more this department spends money into this so-called safety plan, the more our townships will remain unsafe at the hands of the gangs who do as they please, as if there is no law and order. For these reasons, the EFF will not support this vote. Millions of rands are being spent in employing the so-called LEAP officers with the intention of having more boots on the ground. But the very same officers are nowhere to be found near townships where it matters the most. It is then begs a question, why spending millions of rands into initiative that is already failing, more than 2 years in operation? What we also want to understand is the fact that the allocation of all these resources are still targeting the leafy suburbs and not the hotspot areas where exactly our people are dying. It is in this regard that we appeal to government not to just highlight these crime statistics that are decreasing and increasing in our townships, but to do allocation, proper budget allocation to ensure that the lives of our people are being saved in all the congested areas, which includes the availability of resources that result in crime-fighting agencies struggle to combat crime in our areas. In that regard, Deputy Speaker, as AFF, we do not support this vote.
Thank you very much, Honourable Claire Hall. I now recognise Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the ACDP, of course, welcome when money is given and allocated to neighbourhood watches. That helps a lot. I've said it consistently over and over in this chamber. I believe the solution lays in our neighbourhood watches, people that get up 5 o'clock in the morning to see that our commuters get safe to the bus stops and train stations. Secondly, Deputy Speaker, an important thing is, Member Mackenzie mentioned it now 2 times, the hawking buses. The hawking buses is not getting any stipends. We know that previously the City of Cape Town gave an allocation to about 5,000 hawking bus members to make sure that our children are safe when they go to school and come from school. I'm asking this department, please, to look at how can we assist the hawking bus members. Thirdly, I've asked it again and I will ask again, the department, we must, as a committee, we must have oversight over the money allocated to the LEAP officers, allocated to the K9 units, because ultimately the money comes from the province. And I want this committee, the Community Safety Plan Act, to be amended so that we have oversight over that. We hear of reports of LEAP officers doing whatever, and we do not have, as a province, direct control, or just to call them in and to please come and explain. So, Deputy Speaker, that is from the ACDP side. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I assume that Honourable Murray is away for the day, which he did say. So he's not online. I will then move on, Honourable Murray. Thank you. I then recognise Honourable Brinkers.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. For the month of March, already 341 people have been murdered in the province, compared to 343 for the same period in 2018. We need a socio-economic response to eradicate crime, and the focus should be on creating sustainable employment for the youth. What is the Western Cape doing to ensure that universities, hospitals and schools work with local communities to use facilities for training of people? What oversight role is the Western Cape playing on how the city is using its resources to enhance the economic potential of town centres such as in Mitchell's Plain, Nyanga Junction, Gatesville? These town centres are exposed to daily criminal activities, but not radical strategies are implemented to create safe shopping environments to the people of the Cape Flats. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brinkers. I now recognise Honourable Allen.
Thank you, baie dankie, Adjunct Speaker. I am once again happy to be participating in this debate. I do feel to a large extent that I would prefer it to be a conversation where we are able to really address the matters that were discussed here. So to firstly welcome the input from the Minister as well as from Member Mackenzie, and I do echo the support as expressed by Member Mackenzie, but also to welcome the input from other members, Member Kama, Member Brinkhuis, and Member Philin Christians, as well as the EFF online. Members, firstly, I heard here earlier, Deputy Speaker, that we are cutting LEAP officers. Now, that is not a fact. The LEAP program is being implemented in stages, and we would ideally want to have 3,000 as soon as possible. Member Kama is fully aware of this, that last year we couldn't get to the first initial 1,000 because of COVID regulations, but it is being staged in. But I love that he said the word cutting, because we are cutting on crime. We are cutting on the amount of illegal firearms on our streets. We are cutting in terms of illicit drugs that are being confiscated. So Member Kama, we are cutting crime in our province with regard to the LEAP program. Member Kama also mentioned Manenberg, and I will touch on that in my speech. But we have actually appointed docs together with the MEC and the Premier, quickly and swiftly reacted and allocated the reaction unit to Manenberg as soon as those mass murders happened. As soon as those mass murders happened, and that's in conjunction with the AGU as well as with Metro Police, because they act to bolster the efforts of the South African Police Service alongside the neighborhood watches and our CPFs. Member Kama spoke about spying of other people, and I would want to say, Member Kama, if you know of any member in the DA, not in the DA, that you must please make a case with SAPS as soon as possible. I will go with you where we go and make a case against that member if you have any evidence, because I don't think that belongs in the DA. We hear it in the ANC, sadly. Conferences come up, these reports that confirm that the State Security Agency has been used for political gain. They even jam cell phones. If this was now in the ANC, Member Kama wouldn't have been able to access his cell phone here. So we know, but I will go with Member Kama if there's any member that you know of that spy on any person, please let us go and make a case. But also the court watching brief, and Deputy Speaker, I remember I was reading a court watching brief that Member Kama and other members are privy to, and I had to take one evening to actually read that particular court watching brief report. It was the third quarter of last year, and I told my wife that we can first have supper before I'm going to read this report, because I couldn't stomach what I was reading. In that particular report that Member Kama also saw, there was 139 cases that was monitored by the court watching brief that was said to be a pocket knife. And this pocket knife basically monitored 139 court cases, where 12 of those cases, SAPS members were actually dismissed, which SAPS confirmed. So there were inefficiencies. But there was cases where rape featured the highest amongst those 139. And I took one evening to read that report because, like I've said, I think none of the members could stomach reading how one particular case was struck off the court roll 11 times. It was postponed before it was eventually struck off the court case. A 16-year-old. Secondary victimization is adding to the burden. And this pocket knife is doing amazing work that other provinces are also wanting to adopt the role of this pocket knife, which is making a real dent. Just imagine we had a bazooka. Just imagine we had a dagger. If the ANC must give us the money, we can have a dagger and we can do so much more in that regard. But also, it was mentioned about the oversight, and I love that Member Christians also touched on it. And like we've heard in the Standing Committee 2 weeks ago is that the oversight on the LEAP is through the city structures and through the Western Cape government's governance framework. But I do share your concern. I do share and understand where you're coming from, and I will make a commitment to ensure that at the first available opportunity, I will address and approach the programming authority so that we can invite the city back. And the city has been here. The department has been here where we discuss the matters with regard to LEAP, but also in terms of the transfer payment agreement, the city has to account to the department and to the Premier in that regard. We also see that the city further has an established civilian oversight committee. Unlike in other metro cities, the city actually has a civilian oversight committee that I will send details to members, which I found extremely interesting. But let me rather read it. It says, in terms of those members, and I love this, that those members apply via an advert that the city puts out, and those members on the Civic Oversight Committee should have a relevant diploma or degree in the field of policing, crime prevention, public administration, law, or related studies. Persons with a research capacity enabling them to inform crime prevention and law enforcement initiatives with the city, prominent researchers at the academic institutions and or institutes, security and related studies, persons who have been involved in law enforcement and or prevention of crime, as well as ordinary citizens in Cape Town who have consistently displayed a keen interest in crime prevention or law enforcement activities within the city. So those oversight mechanisms exist, and that particular civilian oversight committee is so key to ensure that the bickering and the nonsense that is being spewed and spread doesn't infiltrate the good work that is being done. But to get to the speech, and through you, Deputy Speaker, to the residents of the Western Cape, I wish to state emphatically that I feel your frustration, I share in your anger, and I understand your fear. For the past 2 weeks, it has been the past 2 weeks have been disheartening as we have witnessed yet another number of mass shootings in our province, like Member Kama, like Member Mackenzie alluded to. And I have to confess, Deputy Speaker, at times I was tempted to despair, but I remembered the hope, that hope is far more powerful. Because, Deputy Speaker, I visited Manenberg and Khayelitsha following the mass shootings in those areas. Together with Member Kama, we attended the SAPS in Bizo in Manenberg. And again, we heard firsthand how SAPS continues to fail our people. Residents are fed up and deserve to be protected by the police. Directly after the fatal shooting, where 6 people were killed in Manenberg, the LEAP reaction unit was deployed. The swift action from the department, the acting MEC and the Premier to further capacitate and bolster the operations led by the anti-gang unit and the Metro Police is definitely welcomed. But, Deputy Speaker, there's no doubt that the lack of proper management in the police from national government is to blame for the worsening crime trends, and this is the exact reason why the LEAP officers were sent to Manenberg. But furthermore, Deputy Speaker, following the visit to Manenberg, news broke of another mass shooting in Khayelitsha. And I remember being called for comment, and the words expressed in Manenberg by community members echoed in my ears, which Member Kama also heard, where members of the Manenberg community said, "We are tired of receiving condolences. We want action to be taken." Now, Deputy Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to share a story of my childhood. When growing up in Mitchells Plain, I found casual work during school holidays, and this retailer had stores in Mitchells Plain, in Khayelitsha, actually all across the country. Their tagline was of interest, that they always do it right, where you always save, and even low prices for you. I think they wear the colors of the EFF. But I always felt safe using public transport traveling to Khayelitsha from Rocklands, Mitchells Plain. However, when visiting Khayelitsha last week following the mass shooting, I was reminded that the ANC objected to a motion which condemned a spate of murders in Khayelitsha, Kraaifontein and Umfuleni during May last year. Last year, in this House, a motion condemning the mass shootings in Khayelitsha, Kraaifontein and in Umfuleni was not supported by the ANC, because this motion further sought to extend condolences to the loved ones of the deceased and applaud the work of the law enforcement in arresting alleged perpetrators. When asked, Deputy Speaker, for reason as to why the ANC objected to this motion, we heard it's too long. But Deputy Speaker, at the time, the Speaker correctly clarified and said that there is no such rule that stipulates limitations to the length of motions. Thus, the ANC, in fact, objected to the substance of the very motion to condemn a mass shooting in Khayelitsha less than a year ago. But at the time, Deputy Speaker, I was deeply alarmed by the ANC's actions. However, over time, it became clear there is simply little to no interest in the safety of residents from the ANC at a national level. Here in the Western Cape, the DA-led government remained committed to safety, especially when the ANC-led government, which includes the National Minister of Police, continues to fail our communities by providing limited resourcing and bad management from Pretoria. But I wish to assure residents of our beautiful province that we will continue to exercise our policing oversight function and expand our mandate with or without the ANC. Now, Deputy Speaker, it is well known that mass shootings are endemic in our country as a whole. As early as January 2022, we saw a number of mass shootings in KwaZulu-Natal. At the time, the National Minister of Police visited the area and stated the following: "We trust the capable team led by the Provincial Commissioner that they will work twice as hard in ensuring that parts of KZN province are not again turned into a killing field." Here the National Minister goes on record asking SAPS members that are under-resourced to work twice as hard when he is actually failing at his job. And similar sentiments were expressed last week in Khayelitsha again by the National Minister, because I attended a stakeholder engagement arranged by the Khayelitsha Development Forum, and I was left baffled and in a total state of shock owing to the remarks made by the minister, where he said, and I quote, "I'm not going to say things in the absence of the province because you," referring to me, "are from the legislature with no power, with no executive decisions," unquote. Sadly, some in the crowd, together with the National Minister of Police, laughed at this remark. He failed to address any of my inputs at that particular meeting. But that wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising to me, it's not surprising to the DA, and it's not surprising to the ANC. I say it is not surprising to the ANC because Member Kama is on record to have said on the 19th of November 2021 in the Cape Argus, he said, and I quote, "We reiterate the calls to address the skewed patterns of police resources so that more police could be deployed to the hotspot areas where they are needed." And I love that because it is straight out of a DA statement. Thank you so much, Member Kama. And we have consistently called for that for over a decade. Now, let me paint a picture. Deputy Speaker, Khayelitsha is covered by SAPS infrastructure like the Khayelitsha, Harare, and Lingulethu West police stations. At these stations, we see a worrying picture emerge. And it sounds like a horror movie, but here we go. Khayelitsha has a police to population ratio of 1 officer for every 628 residents. I'm going to repeat, 1 officer for every 628 residents. Harare has a police to population ratio of 1 officer for every 879 residents. It becomes even scarier because Lingulethu West has a police to population ratio of 1 officer for every 664 residents. And between Khayelitsha and Harare and Lingulethu West, we have a further 12% vacancy rate in those stations. A 12% vacancy rate in those stations. And lo and behold, all of those stations are above the provincial average of one officer for every 520 residents, which is even way above the international best practice where we earmark to have 1 for every 250 to 300 citizens. A real picture Member Kama has been calling for the skilled allocations to be addressed. The minister won't listen to him. And that's a sad, sad case in our country. But Speaker, it doesn't stop there. On the other hand, we have areas like Claremont with ratios of 1 officer for every 283 residents. We have an area like Camps Bay and Sea Point, for example, which sits at a ratio of 1 officer for every 121 residents and 281 residents respectively. This is a clear example of skewed allocations that we've been calling for consistently, but the national minister is failing us big time, because as far back as 2014, SAPS made a proposal to the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry, a commission which was established by the then Premier of the Western Cape, Helen Zille. The commission looked into allegations of police inefficiencies and a breakdown in relation between SAPS and the community. And at the time, Deputy Speaker, SAPS proposed that they would build a new police station in Harare, which covers part of the Khayelitsha area. In October last year, I attended an event with SAPS in Khayelitsha, which is 7 years after they made the proposal to build a police station in Harare. And at that particular meeting, they revealed a mobile station. A literal mobile station that's literally on wheels. 7 years after agreeing and confirming to the Khayelitsha Commission of Inquiry that they will build a fully fledged SAPS station in Harare. A truck, a mobile station. It's laughable, but it's extremely sad. It's extremely sad. And I wish to echo the sentiment that we expressed last week in Khayelitsha, in which a member of the community gave input during the engagement. And he said, MPs should stop the SAPS budget as it is not enough. This is what a stakeholder said in Khayelitsha last week. MPs should stop the SAPS budget as it is not enough, to which the National Minister of Police replied, someone here said MPs must stop the budget. What budget? When it's us, ministers, set the budget. So don't ask MPs and MPLs to stop the budget. He said this while pointing and laughing at a resident that asked this particular question. And I'm thinking that in the midterm budget policy statement of 2020, X amount amounting to, I think, 11.7 billion rand. I know it was over 11 billion rand, was taken from various departments. 2020 midterm budget policy statement, 11 billion was taken, 1.2 billion from SAPS and 1.7 billion from education to fund a bailout towards SAA. And the minister, who is part of that decision-making body in the ANC, was okay with allowing the SAPS budget to be cut, to allow that the justice budget to be cut, to allow that correctional services budget to be cut, to allow that education budget to be cut, so that we can bail out a failing state-owned enterprise like SAA. This is deeply saddening. He said that whilst pointing and laughing at the resident in question. Member Kama, I wish that you were here because they wanted to chuck me out of that particular meeting for raising the seriousness of it. And Speaker, in the face of despair, I remain hopeful that we will turn the tide and reach our objective as outlined by the Premier of the Western Cape to halve the murder rate by 2029. Member Mackenzie earlier outlined his support for the vote, and I wish to echo those sentiments. He further reminded members of this House of our oversight role in terms of Section 206 of the Constitution. It is with this context that I wish to give my full support to vote 4 of community safety. I want to state that I'm confident, Deputy Speaker, that we will be able to maintain our excellent working relationships with all safety stakeholders across the province, including SAPS here in the Western Cape. And as a committee, we have seen the commitment from the department's management team, and I am delighted that under the able direction of Advocate Pillay and the entire management team that is here today, our police ombudsman, those in the neighborhood watches that are doing amazing work, those in the liquor authority, they are highly, highly appreciated. Because we've seen, together with all departmental personnel, that their hard work, their diligence and dedication is making the Western Cape safer for all its residents. And before I close, the Western Cape, in terms of vote for, it highlights this commitment in that the 2022-2023 budget has seen an increase of 216,881,000 rand, 100,000 rand from the revised estimate from the 2021-2022 budget. This is an increase of 38.77% as highlighted by Member Mackenzie earlier as well. In Program 1, administration has been allocated over 106 million for the upcoming financial year, and this will ensure that we continue our strategic direction and support administrative, financial and executive services to the department and related entities. But Deputy Speaker, the objective of the program is to efficiently support the Office of the Ministry, Head of Department, Western Cape Police Ombudsman and the Western Cape Liquor Authority in their functions of providing strategic leadership and ensuring effective governance inclusive of financial management. We will continue, Deputy Speaker, to push forward as our Finance Minister gave the marching order that the budget was to push forward, but it is against the backdrop. It's not coming out of nowhere. It's because of the good work that we have done leading up to COVID that we were able to survive and continue to push forward. But also in Program 2, the Provincial Secretariat for Police Services is to receive an amount of 83 million rand. As outlined in the Premier's State of the Province address, this component is vital in our efforts to ramp up our oversight role, because we do not take our role lightly, since the DA understands the importance of exercising oversight over the conduct, effectiveness and efficacy of law enforcement agencies in the province. And further to the department's oversight role, Program 2 will continue to assist with policy research and development that will influence community resource allocations to the province. We've spoken about our programs being data-led and evidence-driven because it's not merely hitting. We need to be strategic in everything we do, knowing that in real terms the budget is shrinking year on year due to mismanagement at the national level. Hence, these safety measures are needed. But Speaker, one cannot underestimate the role of monitoring and evaluation. With our data-led and evidence-based approach, monitoring and evaluation remains a key pillar towards ensuring the best value for money spent. And Speaker, regarding
Member.
In closing, the impact of the LEAP program is being felt in the hotspot areas, as we know it is happening. It is time to deliver and to continue the government. It is time for us to continue to deliver a government for you, and I support this budget, and I said what I said.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Minister Murray.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Thank you to all the members of the Standing Committee. Member Mackenzie, thank you for your passion and in-depth oversight over our department. Member Keko, I know you do care for your community safety, but I'm offering you a copy of my speech so that you do not misinform your constituents. They do deserve better. And then Member Christians, I think he left or is he online? I note all your concerns and I noted that the chairperson will take it up. Then Member Brinkhuis, thank you for your contribution. Yes, we need partners in safety. Very, very important to form those partnerships. Then Member Regan Allen, thank you for your dedicated leadership, as well as in-depth knowledge of docs and your valuable contribution. And Member Karma, LEAP deployment is linked to top murder stations, and the reaction unit consisting of 66 members are deployed to any area if there is a flare-up. And we have reported on inspections of 151 police stations, but during COVID, it was sometimes physically not always possible to do these inspections. Then about Manenberg. Premier and I visited Manenberg, and the LEAP officers form part of the LEAP Reaction Unit, assisting SAPS, with docs, National Prosecuting Authority, and the Asset Forfeiture Unit were deployed. They are committed and made gains in addressing gang-related violence, and I'm going to only mention a few. It's including arresting one 25-year-old male who was charged with murder, 4 individuals for possession of 9mm rounds of ammunition, and recovering 1 firearm. As I've said, I've only mentioned a few. Then you've spoken about the YSAP, Youth Safety Ambassadors, in a previous debate. But I just want to mention the YSAP aim to present youth with opportunities to get experience that could allow them to start and then further a career, as well as encompassing personal development in a form of training that was incorporated in the program. The program provided financial relief, work experience, access to training, fostered personal and community-centered development. The program was introduced as a temporary work opportunity as part of the province's COVID-19 recovery plan, which was introduced to create work prospects to assist metro and rural communities with opportunities. With the contractual agreement of 1 year, the YSAP contracts ended the 15th of March 2022. And lastly, we welcome the confirmed arrest of a suspect in connection with the multiple mass murder cases being investigated in Kailicha. The suspect's arrest does offer some consolation. We will track the case in court through our court watching briefs and will also follow up with the South African Police Service to monitor progress and get the relevant case number. Then lastly, I want to thank the department. Thank you, HOD Pillay and the team for your support and being here in person. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on vote for community safety. Honourable members, this concludes the business for the day. Mr. Stamela will now end the meeting. I think tomorrow we're beginning at 10 a.m. as per the next day's votes. The House is adjourned. Thank you very much.